Let's travel back in time to 2016, when the Pokemon anime had just given us peak fiction with the Team Flare arc, the epic climax to the Pokemon XYZ series. Now, while everyone and their mother was still pissed off about how the Kalos League ended, this did alleviate some of that just due to its stakes, its spectacle, its storytelling. All of it was just mwah, chef's kiss. It was great. But even though the XY anime was really delivering with its finale, a lot of fans were looking towards the future, the next Pokemon anime series, as Generation 7, Pokemon Sun and Moon, was right around the corner. People wanted to see the story of this Ash continue. I mean, my man was straight up aura farming like a decade before the phrase was invented. People loved this direction for Ash and the Pokemon anime in general. So what did Pokemon do? The exact opposite of this, as we were introduced to good old Ash from Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
Now, while I'm one of the people who really likes Sun and Moon and thinks it's easily one of Pokemon's best portions, a lot of people beg to disagree. The 180 from the almost shonen-esque XY series to the slice-of-life comedy that was Sun and Moon was really just too fast for a lot of people. Whiplash is a real thing when it comes to audiences. But why did Pokemon make such a huge change? I mean, you'd think that after the success of XY, they'd want to double down on that type of series. Well, as a writer myself, someone who constantly writes their own original works and even writes Pokemon stories, I wanted to come on here and explain why I totally understand why the writers did this. And it all comes down to story structure. This is obviously the building blocks of the narrative. Without this foundation, there's no plot. And from 1997 to 2016, the Pokemon anime had used the exact same structure every single time. Ash travels the region, makes new friends, catches new Pokemon, challenges the gyms, enters the league, loses the league, and then we add in any sort of obligatory marketing for whatever generation we're talking about. And things like the region, companions, and Pokemon changing aren't a real mix-up in terms of storytelling. Remember, the anime at the end of the day serves as marketing for the games and merchandise. Even in seasons where the region isn't the main focal point, like Paldea and Horizons, we still got that whole Terastal debut arc to promote the academy, the gym leaders, and some Scarlet and Violet characters / Pokemon, while also putting a much higher emphasis on terastallization. So the idea that changing the setting or characters inherently changes the entire structure of a story is just untrue in Pokemon's case. I think an easier way to break this down for you guys would be introducing something I'm sure you guys have probably heard once or twice, and that's the hero's journey. If you guys have ever watched Star Wars or like Harry Potter, this is the structure for those main characters. This is kind of the outline of how their character arcs and trajectory goes. But let's break it down using Ash's journey from Kanto to Kalos. The hero's journey is separated into two worlds, the known or the ordinary and the unknown. Pun intended. And this ordinary world is the first part of the journey itself, which establishes the hero's normal life, and for most Pokemon seasons, this is just introducing Ash as a Pokemon trainer with the goal of becoming a Pokemon master. Then there's the Call of Adventure, which disrupts the normalcy and thrusts the protagonist into the supernatural world, the unknown. Well, maybe not a disruption. Ash normally always has a reason for going off to another region. His quote-unquote normal life would be returning to Professor Oak's lab, and the Call of Adventure could be learning about, say, Sinnoh, and then going off to Sinnoh. There's also the refusal of the call, where the protagonist shows internal conflict about leaving the ordinary world, and I don't really think this applies to Ash, but you could see him as not wanting to leave his friends behind, something like that. I'm really trying to sound smart here, but it's just not working. But after that is meeting the mentor, And mentor is kind of a specific word for any poke, but you could see this as Ash meeting his companions because it opens up the potential for them to serve as sort of mentor figures. Take Brock and Silent, for example. They're kind of like surrogate big brother figures that help push Ash along. After this, our hero must cross the threshold, beginning their transformation. So at this point, Ash is starting to catch new Pokemon, train them, and get stronger with that new team. But of course, no transformation can occur without tests, allies, and enemies. Tests are, of course, the gyms. Allies can be his companions, acquaintances, the professors of each region, and enemies are the gym leaders, Team Rocket, and any sort of malicious force. The transformation started in the last part, but this is where we really see the bulk of that growth. So let's say gyms 2 through 7, because after that is approaching the cave, where Ash takes all he's learned and tests that by confronting fear and purpose. In Pokemon's case, this is the 8th gym, the final test before the ordeal. The biggest challenge, aka the Pokemon League. Normally this comes with a reward for surviving the ordeal, but it's not like Ash is gonna die fighting in a tournament, and most of the time he loses anyway. So the reward is normally just his unyielding determination to become a Pokemon Master being rekindled. He doesn't give up in the face of failure and instead keeps pushing on. This also serves as the road back, where Ash heads towards this resolution, culminating in a resurrection of the character. Ash is still Ash. And finally, we have the return. He says farewell to his companions, the region, and goes back to Oaks. Now, the difference between Pokemon and other stories is that this only happens once for most protagonists. For Ash, it was 6 times. And it's not like things happening with each step of the hero's journey was any different either. They were like copying and pasting the series over and over again. It's like the meme of, can I copy your homework? Except it's the same dude just copying his homework over and over and over again and getting a passing grade. But you might be asking, if it's working, why change it? Because, and I say this as a writer, doing the same thing over and over again sucks. No writer wants to tell the same story over and over again with just a few different elements. Most people want to try out new things, challenge themselves, and see whether or not this is a better type of style for them. I know that I've done this before. What makes Pokemon's writers any different? Think about it this way, right? You and your friends have this restaurant you guys really like, and this one person in your friend group keeps ordering the same thing over and over again. And so after like 6 or 7 times going to that restaurant, everyone is expecting him to get that item once again, but he ends up getting something else because he wants to try something different. So now let's go over the hero's journey one more time, instead using Ash's Alola journey. The ordinary world. Ash is a trainer who wants to become a Pokemon Master. Simple and similar to the others. Call to adventure. Ash meets Tapu Koko, loses in their battle, and vows to defeat it. Unlike other seasons where his goal is to take on the gyms and enter the league, he wants to beat Tapu Koko. Refusal of the call. Again, this one is kind of messy, but you could see this as the environment of Alola being so radically different that it's kind of imposing for Ash. Again, I don't know. This is the one that I'm just like, ugh. Meeting the mentor. Ash meets Kukui, who more so than any other character in the entire Pokemon anime, serves as a parental figure for him. Crossing the threshold. While this still contains stuff like Ash catching Pokemon and becoming stronger, this also includes Ash learning to love Alola as a region, as a home. Tests, allies, and enemies. Tests aren't gyms anymore. They're the island trials. Battles against tough foes, and most importantly, emotional arcs, like helping Litten through its grief. Allies and enemies are still relatively the same. Approaching the cave, Ash finally comes to understand how much he loves Alola, putting him in the perfect position for the ordeal. The Alola League. The reward. Ash becomes Alola's first champion. But not only that, he gets to fight Tapu Koko again and win, completing his goal. Something no other series has done before this. And I think it's kind of funny in a series where Ash's goal is to not be champion, he actually wins the league. And he also does his goal, like he beats Tapu Koko. I just think that's kind of ironic. The road back. Ash realizing he loves Alola and feels bad about leaving it. The resolution. Ash finally decides to leave Alola and travel the world, to see everything it has to offer. The return. Ash goes back to Kanto to begin his travels again. See how that's different? Again, both use the hero's journey, but if we were to compare both side by side, you can see how this new approach to Pokemon led to a much different narrative, allowing the writers to experiment with different things. Whether or not you prefer the story of Sun and Moon to the others is entirely up to you. But this show was a lot more impactful than just its change in animation style. Sun and Moon opened the floodgates for a whole new era of Pokemon storytelling. Pokemon Journeys, while certainly not everyone's cup of tea, especially mine, was definitely another one of these experiments. Instead of a more focused narrative on one place, making the series stationary, we went for a broad, traveling series with an episodic structure. Like it or not, the previous formats for the anime would have never worked for Journeys. Even if you're like me, who thinks Journeys is one of the worst Pokemon seasons, it still pursued the ideas of change, innovation, and reinvention that started with Sun and Moon. Trial and error, while it may not be what you want or the best feeling when writing, is still super important when crafting a narrative. It might not be your best work, it might not even be good. Trying new things will always help you improve. I think we're really seeing this now with Pokemon Horizons. It's very clear that this is more so a passion project than a necessity. It's not Pokemon the series Scarlet and Violet, rather a whole original story that can be enjoyed by all Pokemon fans. A fresh start, with a more bombastic story that's really mixed up some of the stuff we thought would never change in the Pokemon anime. I mean, we have a time skip. A time skip! A couple years ago, people would have called you crazy if I said Pokemon would do that. So, let's go back to our question. Why did Pokemon change with Sun and Moon? Well, it was a risk to finally express creativity in a new way. It allowed the Pokemon writers to get more funky with their stuff, try out new things, and honestly, just have more fun writing. And the last thing you want is an author not having fun with their work. And that's going to be it for today's video. Hopefully you guys learned something, and to enjoy more high quality content, check out the videos on screen right now.